Are you tired of watching shows that only give you general social media theory and expect you to figure out how to apply it to your own industry? Join us for this week's episode of Social Chatter, the industry's longest running social media marketing news talk show. Not only will you learn the latest breaking news, but you'll also gain practical advice on how to apply it. Now here's your host, Christian Karasevich.
Welcome everyone to Social Chatter, your weekly social media marketing news talk show. It's fantastic to be back in the hot seat. We've got a fantastic show for you this week. Lots of topics to talk about. Actually, I'm excited about a lot of these new things that are happening across social media. And the thing I can't stress enough about social media is that you need to be constantly testing things, trying things out. Don't just look at what someone else is doing and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to make a copy of that in my business. It does not, it doesn't always work. You have a different audience, you have different customers that you are serving. And you also have to remember, I like to call it the wifey model, the what's in it for you model, meaning your customers, not you as a business owner, because it's not about you as a business owner. It's about your customers. What are you doing to serve them, to give them value? So what we're doing this week, by the way, we've got some great topics. We're going to talk about some Facebook news. We've got Twitter. We've got Instagram, I think. We've got some LinkedIn news. So we almost have almost the whole social media royal flush, I guess, if I put that right. So I'm looking forward to this week's show, but I'm going to go and bring on Jem. Jem is filling in for Phil. And I joked with Phil actually yesterday. He's doing a lot of traveling with his current work. So he's going to be back with us in a couple of weeks. But I joked with him. I said, hey, you know what? I need to get some T-shirts made that say filling in, with fill in quotation marks. But definitely something we need to maybe work on. But Jim, it's great to have you back. I think long time no see, right? Like last week.
Right. Well, and obviously nobody can replace Phil because Phil is a great and unique person in his own right. So I'm glad to be here, but I cannot fill in for Phil. Right? No pun intended. But
that's the key thing to keep in mind is that as a business owner, you probably suffer from I want to say maybe you might hear people say imposter syndrome, things like that. Oh, I'm not good enough and whatnot. But you have to remember we are all unique, and you need to find what that uniqueness is about you that sets you apart from everyone else.
Exactly.
So you could be talking about the same topics, but what spin do you put on, or what do you bring to the table? It could be your experience. It could be the fact that, hey, you know what? You actually run a business in that industry. So keep that in mind. And that's where you need to look at another business and say, well, hey, what are they doing? Are there elements that they do that I might want to incorporate, and can I incorporate them? Meaning, do I have the bandwidth, the time, and whatnot to be able to do that?
Right.
Happy to have you back. I know we're going to have Ryan on this week. I think he actually may be stuck in some traffic. But if he does show up here shortly, we will bring him in. If not, we're going to reschedule to have him back on. But let me know when you're ready, because I know we got a lot to talk about.
I'm ready.
You everyone's time.
Absolutely.
So where do you want to start, by the way?
Well, let's start with Twitter, because I love Twitter. I don't know if you love Twitter.
Have going on here, by the way, this week?
Well, it's interesting. Twitter has brought in the ability to put reactions into your direct messaging, which is really kind of a neat thing, because if you think about it, Facebook's been doing it a while in Messenger, that especially when you're in a group message, right? Sometimes you see someone make a comment and you'd like to let them know what you think about it without having to continue writing in the thread. So now you can actually just tap on the actual comment or double tap on it if there's another comment after the thread, and leave one of these 7 reactions, which I think is nice. It makes it just it's a little bit more making social. I think that's what we forget sometimes.
Exactly. And that's a key point, by the way, keep in mind is that, with social, it's not just, you could be a lurker, you could be behind the scenes, you can, be reading everybody's comments and, you engage slightly. There are also people that are the overshare. They like to go and, share too much information, on social, but keep that in mind. So this is definitely, this is a good feature. I think to have. How about you? Like, do you check your direct messages a lot on Twitter or not too much?
I do mainly because, for as an example, with Twitter Smarter, with the greeter team in Madeline, we actually have a DM where we talk about who's going to be the next guest. That's how we check on who's going to be available for the chat. We also will actually do a breakdown of who's going to be covering, because we break it up by the alphabet, believe it or not, so that we actually want to make sure that we're touching all the folks in the community when they come into the chat. So yeah, I definitely check my DMs on a daily basis now. If you're one of those people, it's kind of like with LinkedIn that we connect and then the first DM you send me is you're trying to sell me, there's no response.
Yeah. Yes. Especially those auto DMs. I do see those happen quite a bit. Or immediately connect with somebody and it's like, hey, go fill out this survey or go do this for me. Sometimes I just want to have a quick chat with you. So yeah. So people need to skip that every once in a while.
Right.
But yeah, the fact that Twitter is now offering these reactions. I think these are good reactions. You've got the sad reaction, you've got the surprised reaction, obviously the loved one, the the thumbs down, and you've got the
it's on fire.
That's on fire. Yeah. So I think those are good. I think they're very useful to have. I think that I personally, I think that it'd be nice that I can now give somebody a thumbs down when they give me a automated message saying, hey, go join me on try to immediately sell me on joining a member.
I like that. Good tip.
No worries. By the way, I am chatting with Ryan here. We got a little time mix up maybe, but let me see if I'll see if he can join. But yeah, so that's what we have going on with Twitter this week. What else do we have? I mean, from a business perspective, I think this is good. Use the reactions to, in a way, engage with your audience, but let them know what, get in a way, instead of just being really terse and, just mean to somebody, maybe give them a thumbs down if you don't like the question they're asking, for example, or if it's spam that they're sending you.
Right.
Don't be afraid to, give them a reaction.
Right.
So yeah. So that's what we got going on with Twitter this week. Anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think, like I said, it's definitely something that I've started using, and I think it's a good feature. I mean, I think all these platforms are attempting to become more engaging, and as Jessica Phillips talked about, this is in a sense, this is the dark social, not the dark web, where the dark social is people are communicating a lot through these messenger apps, and so how do you make it more of a community within the messaging aspect of the apps as opposed to actually in groups or where everybody can see? So I think it's a good thing.
Definitely. So what do we have going on next, by the way? So we got Twitter, that's some Twitter news. What's up?
Do we want to talk about our friend Facebook?
Sure. What do we have going on? What's up with Facebook this week? Because they do usually release a lot of different updates. But what do we have?
So we have a new tool, or I don't know if it's a new tool, but they're actually allowing us to clear our history.
So what is this and why does it matter? How do I access this?
Well, I haven't accessed it yet myself, but basically it sounds like it's almost like with your browser and clearing your cookies. So it wipes out where you've been, and I guess maybe that helps. But then again, I guess as an advertiser, I would maybe be concerned that when it comes to targeting, that now maybe I'm not going to capture that data, and I'm not going to now get that audience that I'm looking to get in front of. I mean, what are your thoughts?
That is a very good point, actually. So what we have basically going on here is Facebook has rolled out this clear history. Now it's available on mobile at the moment. If you go to your mobile device, first thing I would do, by the way, and this is the same for Twitter as well, update your settings. So, update your app. So go to your app store, make sure you're running the latest version of Facebook or the latest version of Twitter for this feature. In this case, for Facebook, go into the Facebook app, not the Pages app, the Facebook app, and go into the settings option. So what we're going to do here, once you do this, is there will be an off Facebook activity option, as you can see here on screen. And what that's going to do is it's going to give you the ability to view or clear your activity. So as you mentioned, it's like clearing your cookies, exactly like clearing your cookies for Facebook. And this is actually going to apply to third party. It's going to apply to pixels, all sorts of stuff. And that gets to the point where, like where you mentioned, it's a bigger issue if you're an advertiser, because you're going to basically get rid of that data that somebody might be using to actually try to target you with some ads. Personally, I don't see necessarily an issue with this. I see the issue with the fact that it makes it harder for a business to target a user. But looking at the grand scheme of things, Facebook, Apple is doing this. Google is even doing this. They're trying to actually, so for example, from Apple's standpoint, they're trying to put no tracking into their browser. So if you're using Safari on iOS or Android, on iOS or on a phone, on a tablet or a laptop, they're basically getting rid of that. So they're trying to remove the tracking piece. Now, Google is actually trying to do the same thing. So the fact that Facebook has to offer this, they might have to do it because everyone else is doing it.
Well, and that brings up an interesting point is, so do you think this is more of a way, maybe from a, if you want to call it big brother standpoint, of being able to say to the government, like, well, hey, look, we're not capturing these people data. We're giving the ability to have privacy. And I don't know, I almost find it ironic in a way that we're going to allow people to not be tracked, but we know they can still be tracked. And it's if anything, I just think it's going to make it tougher. Well, I don't know. I take that back. It's not that it's going to make it tougher for businesses. It's going to make businesses have to get better at marketing.
Definitely. And by the way, I do have Ryan Boyles here. I'm actually going to bring him in. We'll do a quick. So I used to work with him at IBM. Ryan, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great.
So it's great to have you on. Hopefully you're not driving. Hopefully not. It looks like you're in a car getting ready.
I am not driving, but I decided I would find a nice sunny spot this morning to join the show.
Perfect. So
Awesome.
we'll be quick. We have a few topics. So we are actually, I told everybody, you and I used to work at IBM together. I think, are you working in IoT now or?
Yeah, well, I've been working in IoT for a couple of years. I guess almost 3 years now. You're right.
So what we're talking about now is actually the new Facebook Clear History tool that you can get to on specifically mobile right now under settings. The fact that it makes it easier for a user to remove their off Facebook activity. What do you think about this? Because I know this probably also plays into some stuff that IBM does, but what do you think as far as the fact that like users can now remove the fact that people can't really target them with a pixel?
Yeah, I saw one of my digital strategists that I work with was sort of, excited about this, but I explored it. I went into a lot of the settings earlier, on the web page, and you say easier. I'm going to contend it's not so easy because it seems it's kind of hidden. It's the language of it is not very clear, even to us in the industry, even the folks that are professionals and do, like you said, do this for a living. Mm-hmm. And it's really not clear once you get into these settings what you're turning on or turning off, or there's language that sort of says, well, we're gonna give you this ability to block certain websites, but we're still going to track you a different way. It all seems kind of like I'm not sure why they're making such a big deal about something. I know why people want it,
right?
But it seems like if they've been working on this for 2 years, because they first announced it at, I believe, their developer conference in 2018.
They did.
It just feels like I'm not sure if this is a win or not. I guess if the simple thing is for me, I said, okay, I'm going to go in there into my wife's account and just turn off everything and see what happens.
Right.
See if it lives up to the hype. Because one of the things that my wife and I often talk about and we joke about, and it's even a little game with us, is to see how Facebook will react when we say things in everyday conversation.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I like this, putting things to the test. That's the other key thing. A lot of times people, what they'll do is they'll just take this stuff at face value and assume it works exactly how they say it does. And it's really good to experiment, put things to the test.
I also think most people did not realize the type of tracking or how the tracking worked off of Facebook, or how pervasive it was. But most of us in the industry understand that the super pixel or whatever you want to call it has been, part of their strategy with implementing like buttons or authentication for years and years and years. It's been a core part of their strategy.
Mhm.
So it's interesting to see that they want to give this kind of control to people. And what will that do to the wider sort of Facebook, strategy going forward?
Definitely. And I'm looking at like as you mentioned, I'm looking at my off Facebook activity right now, and there are 392 activities going on. So if I look under this, it says there are 392 apps and websites that have shared your activity, which is pretty crazy. And they give you how many, like for instance, YouTube's done 20 plus, Mashable here has 3+. And that's funny because I literally just pulled up an image that I was looking to share, and and it's already tracking it. So I've got that. I've got ESPN here, with 20 plus. So it does, in a way, it also helps you kind of see who is doing the tracking. And for example, if I'm seeing 20 plus things from a site, that's a lot. So it's actually rather.
I think my wife had you beat. I think she had like 477 or something like that.
Yeah.
But I was sort of surprised, just like you, because when I started scrolling through the details, the individual histories, I thought it'd be easy to like kick out all the old stuff, or the the game, the quiz that you took that one time that you don't want to give that questionable company access anymore. Thought that would be easy, but the whole first page before the fold, before scrolling, was all stuff she had done just in the last 24 hours. So it was really eye-opening.
And with this, I'm looking at the clear history option. So as I actually clear my history, it says the activity history will be disconnected from your account. Great. We'll continue to receive your activity from the businesses and organizations you visit in the future. So it's not like it's actually stopping it, unless they actually then go in and stop it. And then in addition to that, it's saying that obviously it may log you out of some of these sites, which is unfortunate because a lot of times people don't want to have to log in and out of websites. So clearing my history, it's basically like clearing cookies. And then obviously at the same time, they're saying like your ad preferences and actions you take on Facebook will be used to show you relevant ads still. So you do have to go, not just like clear the history, but you do have to actually go in and remove or disconnect those connections in order to remove the tracking and whatnot. What do you think?
I think for the everyday user, it's going to make them question, do they want to turn this off? I think they've made it so that it's like, well, you can turn it off, but your stuff that you like doing every day, the game or the whatever, is going to maybe stop working the way you want it to,
Right.
So I think that a lot of people are either going to take a hard stance and cut it off completely, or this is just business as usual, and people are really like, oh, well, this is the way Facebook works.
Jeb, what do you think? Do you think that people need to take a harder look at their privacy settings?
Well, I just find it funny to begin with. You're on Facebook. It's a public open network, and you're acting like, oh, I got to have privacy, or to just delete the app.
Right.
I mean, I just think it's, it's kind of like you go on Amazon, right? And then you go on Facebook and all of a sudden said, hey, you forgot to buy this stuff. You're like, oh, how does it know that? Well, there's part of it right there. It's the Facebook activity. But so, I mean, if you're really that concerned about what people are, what companies have access to, I guess you have to question, why are you using it? So I'm not going to probably do anything with it. I think you just have to be smarter about what you go visit, and just be prepared that they want your money.
Absolutely. Well, and the key thing is, I mean, you are giving up some of your conveniences, like by giving access to this. I mean, like on one hand, you're giving up the privacy aspect, but hey, it does mean that I might get better at targeted ads, for example, from websites. So, it's there's give and take. If I'm a business, by the way, Ryan, what should I do? Is there anything I should do to prepare for this, or like maybe I need to change my tactics? What do you think?
Well, it's interesting. There's been a lot of internal discussion, but not just in the last week, but in the entire last year, about what kind of changes with Facebook are necessary. Is it strategic for our business or not? And I can't speak for that officially, but
Of course.
there has been a lot of second looks, right? Looking at how data is used and is it beneficial? And so I think the jury is out. I think a lot of businesses are questioning it now. I mean, I'm not a Facebook hater. I'm just saying that when you look at sort of with their, all the news about their inflated views around video, it does make you sort of look at it and say, okay, what KPIs can I trust, and what is going to really benefit my business? Am I seeing the payoff? And those are just basic things you have to do with any marketing strategy. So it's a little bit of business as usual, but we are taking a closer look.
Definitely. So,
and I'm surprised how many businesses still don't have the pixel in their website. I run into a lot of small businesses, like you ask them and they give you like this third eye in the middle of your head look, like, what's the pixel?
Sure. Yeah.
No, definitely. It's rather, it's surprising. I think that, again, I mean, you just have to be mindful about what you're sharing, with Facebook or with any platform. In addition to this, I was mentioning before you came on, the fact that Apple, obviously, like with Safari, they're doing do not track on their browser. I know Google is also trying to remove cookies, so that like if you're like working with affiliates and things like that, they're trying to remove that as well from their product as well. So like to not let people be able to track for affiliate sales. That, like I said, this could be the next iteration of that, which is like, hey, we got to get other companies like Facebook maybe, and Amazon even maybe on board. What do you think?
I think you are going to see this with every company. I think with a B2B company like ours, our strategy is much more looking at strategies around account-based marketing, things that we know who we're talking to, we know who we, the relationships we're trying to build through our marketing is a bit different. We're not trying to, necessarily depend on just casting a wide net to everyone. We want to, we know we have a solution for, using Internet of Things data with artificial intelligence for your engineering company, for example, right? So we want to talk directly to those folks. And what we're finding is that we're probably not going to connect with those folks on Facebook.
Right.
We're more likely to reach them and have credibility elsewhere.
Exactly. And that's a key thing. It comes down to knowing your audience, knowing who it is you want to reach and which platforms they're on. And, while Facebook might have the most users, you have to look at who that audience is you're trying to reach and whether they're going to be on that platform or not. And also, look at it like this. If I'm trying to reach, for example, like the CEO of a company, chances are pretty high that they're not going to be hanging out on Facebook. They're going to either be on LinkedIn or they're not going to be on social media at all. So the better way to get to them is to get to, in a way, their minions or the other people that are running, their company. So for example, if it's, related, getting in front of some of their developers. So that might mean, hey, going outside of a social media channel and checking out some of the communities that are, developer focused. So you're reaching the right people there, offering assistance, and then eventually like getting them into that sales funnel. Jim, anything else you want to add on this topic before we switch to anything else?
No, I just think Ryan brings up a great point. It really gets down to the psychology of the platforms, and you're not going to probably get a lot of B2B sales on Facebook. I think you have to think about human behavior, and it's very fascinating how people behave differently on different platforms. They won't watch a long video on Facebook, but they'll spend all day watching YouTube videos. I think that's a great point.
Anything else you want to add, Ryan, before we move on to another topic?
I think the last thing I'll say about this is I guess adding on to your point about developers, I mean, you do have to go where your audience is. And so you have to look at, things that maybe aren't traditional in the same way that Facebook once upon a time was new. You hear a lot about conversational, commerce is the way some people call it, conversational marketing. Yep. And a lot of these conversations are happening in these private forums. And, just one example, look at Discord. There's a lot of people that are saying, look at those platforms. And those are not, there's not going to be traditional marketing there, of course. It's not something where you're going to be able to have the same sort of tactics. So I think there is, a lot of thought around how do you reach folks that are going to be behind a walled garden that's even more private.
Definitely. I think that's a great point you make, actually. It's not just part of it's the private web aspect, but the other part is, looking at what property that person's spending the time on. And you can't just jump in there and be like, well, hey, go check out, go sign up for my webinar, or go check out my website, or go buy my product. That a lot of people seem to think they can just go from 0 to 60. So, it does require taking a step back and actually looking where your customers are at, and actually maybe even beating down some doors, knocking on some doors, meeting people, in person, getting to know them and seeing, hey, where do you actually spend your time? Because I bet you will find when you talk to a lot of these people, they don't spend their time where you assume that they spend their time at. They're doing other things, they're working, they may pop into a forum every once in a while, but they're not going to be there 24/7, for instance, at your beck and call, ready for you. So you do have to be on point with that. And I think it's a tough thing to get over, but there's a lot of work involved if you want to get in front of the right people. So, Jim, where are you going next? So we talked, Ryan, we talked about the Twitter reactions. We talked about this whole Facebook clear history tool that obviously it's finally now available to everybody. But Jim, where do you want to go next?
Let's go with the Instagram stories update.
So what is going on here with Instagram stories?
Well, I think now that they're allowing you to see, especially with branded content, who's mentioned you in stories, you can now, repurpose that or, share it to your stories. So I think it's a good tool. And it also, I think it shows, because when you look at what happened, I think it was last week with IGTV, with the app going away, at least within the Instagram itself, that this is where they're continuing to up the game into the stories platform, which is not a surprise. I mean, Facebook, which owns Instagram, has been saying since last year that, the future is stories, the future is groups. If you listen to what they say, you can actually be successful. So I think this is a good thing for people to find out about, and also, possibly, share, in a sense, it's almost like getting people to share more stories.
So Ryan, what do you think about the stories platform overall? Do you use them a lot? Do you use Facebook more than Instagram? How about from a business perspective? Are you all using stories at all? What do you think?
Well, personally, I do believe that there's some credence to this, this notion that stories are becoming important and becoming more important as we go. I sat on a panel at a conference called Social Fresh in December. Gosh, that was December 2018. And we talked about, we had Microsoft was on the panel with me, the head of their marketing for the Surface line, someone from a hotel chain as well, and we really talked about how the stories is really becoming the sole focus for some brands, because the notion that it is much more, I guess it's in a way more intimate than your feed, right? You see lots of folks that are using it effectively, and they are not just, it's shifted away, I think, feature function wise. I think it's coming into its own more, because I first thought, and just like everyone, and it was a Snapchat clone, right? But now I believe they're finding their own lane. They figured out what works and what doesn't. They've added in things that frankly give you flexibility to personalize, but that's a double-edged sword too. I mean, it used to be the notion that when you use something like Vine or these short form platforms, that the limitations force the creativity. Right. But I think you see here with these new features being added, and like you're saying, around the connectivity, those things actually really empower, better communication. And I have lots of examples where I've seen this play out in my personal story.
Yeah. So, and I mean, in order basically to get this new feature, by the way, you do have to upgrade the Instagram app. So you will also, as I mentioned here, like you'll see the mentions option. So they call this Instagram create mode, basically. And so you'll be able to see your mentions at the bottom. You'll see the total story mentions count at the top. I actually like this design, and I'm actually excited for Facebook to get this because I think it will come to Facebook at some point. The fact that like it also, I think also helps because a lot of times when somebody wanted to share a story, what they would typically do is they'd take a screenshot or something like that, maybe post it as a photo and whatnot. The fact that now like you basically are creating a share of a post essentially. I like this functionality. I think, like from a business perspective, Ryan, what do you think? Do you think this is hard to, is it hard for businesses to like get into stories? How are you using it, or you have any ideas for?
Well, I think the challenge is the creativity aspect.
Okay.
And so you've got to your business has to be willing to create content that of course is made for that audience, made for that format, it's not all that different from the notion of creating for a different platform. But I think the mistake that many businesses make with social is that they have a piece of content or a story or an event, and they just want to multiplex it out to all the stuff, put it here, put it here, put it here,
Yep.
But that's not really how you're going to effectively have what, we call a omni-channel, strategy. And you've got to make a story that feels like it was, a story first, right?
Right.
And to take advantage of those features that are unique to Instagram stories, I think it takes a little effort to really make it work.
It does. So Jim, do you want to add anything to this?
No, I think Ryan hit on a very key point. How many times do you see a company just wants to take one piece of content and put it out, and they don't even adjust it for the tags or the size of the graphics and things like that, and then they, what they don't understand is when people are looking, it's like, what is this? And so I think it takes a lot of creativity, and so kind of goes back to, if you don't have a creative business, are you really on the right platform for what your business is doing, or do you need to find someone that's got that talent to help you create that strategy to be effective with it?
And I think also, by the way, Ryan, you made an excellent point here, and I'm excited to talk about this tool in a few minutes. But the fact that like you talked about Vine, and for those of you who don't know about Vine was this platform where you had limited controls to make a 6-second video. And there are quite a few creators that got really big on this. But the tool, because it was you were confined, you had to figure out how to be creative with it. And I like that actually, because a lot of times people, they want that whole like, done for you thing. But the problem with the done for you thing is that you lack the creativity a lot of times, because, if it's already done for me, I can just like, oh, let me just drop a photo in there and hey, look at that. I'm going to put that up. It might not look like match my brand, and or the style that I'm always talking about. So I like the fact that the tool in a way forces the user to have to be creative versus giving them all the features at once. Because other thing you also run into is, the fact that everybody's content starts to look the same if they're all using the same tool. For example, people that use Canva. While I like Canva for certain things, I also look at it and say, well, hey, you know what? It's easy to spot somebody's content that was created on Canva because it looks very cookie cutter-ish. So I think that's a brilliant point you made about, Vine encouraging users to get creative versus giving them all the.
One more point there is that it actually makes me wonder. Something I've been wondering about Instagram stories is that I was afraid they were adding too many features, and so the more complicated something gets, I think you get the average user or the novice, saying, afraid that they're not, quote unquote, doing it right.
Right.
So the example
right either. That's the key thing.
Right. Well,
right.
It's hard to have that mentality though, when folks, and this is, talking about everyday users. I experienced this with TikTok, where the first time I used it was last, I think sometime last fall. I was on a road trip with my wife and 2 other women. And I was like, hey, it'd be awesome to create a little music video because we were going to a concert. I was like, let's have a fun little road trip video. and they got lost down the rabbit hole of like playing with all the face filters and all the stickers. And I was like, no, you don't understand what is, just keep it simple. We're just doing a lip dub, fun. And so, that's an example of where you have to pick and choose like what you want to get out of it. And you're right. There's no right answer, but sometimes having that broad canvas gives people doubt, makes people second guess, like, what should I do with it?
Right. Like, I forgot to use this feature. It's not going to work as well. And
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that was my fear with Instagram stories, is that when they started adding the kitchen sink of buttons down there with like boomerang and live, and like, there were like 10 buttons down there before this latest change. And it was sort of like, you really had to put a lot of thought into, if you're, going to have multiple segments of, like, if you're at an event and you want a cohesive story, right? You've got a lot of planning to do all of a sudden.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's one thing that that Gemini, we've been focusing a lot on live video actually lately. And that's the thing that live video, for example, it's the same thing. Like, we keep looking at people doing, trying to make it more complicated than it needs to be. Like, they're trying to like do something where like it's
they
not
want to
hard.
launch their live from an outside location.
Right. For example, yeah, exactly. Like, you want to do live video from an outside location. Like, let's look at all of the, like, yeah, you could do that, but you're making it more complicated than it needs to be. And there's a lot of planning that that's involved in all of this. It's not just like, hey, I'm going to launch the app. So I think that's a great point you make for Instagram stories. Do you think that Instagram needs to have a separate stories app? Like, I know like Facebook's all been about like, hey, let's put everything in one app and then let's move it out and then let's put it back. But do you think there should be maybe a separate stories app to make it easier?
I don't know. The danger of saying that an app makes it easier has backfired for a lot of people. Like, if you, I've been doing social so long that I see patterns now. Like, you look at how, like, Foursquare won the geolocation war, but then they ruined their app because they decided they were going to split it into like 2 or 3 different things, right? And I think that really, they had one of the best databases for geolocation of any company in the world, and they kind of made that decision of splitting it out and trying to compete with Yelp, and I think they killed themselves because of it. So I think you have to look at how do you make it feel easy without it being a complete, like, again, a change that people aren't going to understand. Because as soon as people are loyal when they like something, when they're part of something, but frankly, they will abandon you if they find an easier way, or they just think it's too complicated and get frustrated. So I think that's the danger with this decision. I have been watching and seeing, I've been sharing a lot of my stories onto Facebook. Very easy to do, one click. I actually, like that I can pick and choose per segment, per post, what I'm going to put on Facebook and what I'm just going to leave in Instagram. So I also like that some of those features that are in the story that you embed, like a question or a poll or what have you. I like that those now show up, functionally in the Facebook story as well. But I'm also a little worried that they're going to ruin it by just shoving it into Facebook, right? So I actually like, I still feel like Instagram is a different community, or a different, it's just a different vibe than Facebook. And some of that's the age demographic. Some of that's just, cool creators in one place and mom and dad talking in another place. There's kind of, that reality that Facebook doesn't want to, probably acknowledge as much as we understand. But those things are crucial, because if you make a misstep, you're alienating somebody, and then you've got another Tumblr on your hands, and everybody just jumps off the platform.
Definitely. So any last thoughts you want to add on this Instagram ability to share mentions with the new Instagram Stories Create mode?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. So, Jim, what's the last topic we have this week? Because I know we had some other ones we didn't get to. We didn't talk about those just because, we like to bring everybody the latest and the best news. And I know you can get a lot of this, by the way, by going to socialchefs.com/daily. We'll send out the blog post recap. But we got one more topic. What's that topic?
That's LinkedIn is bringing Elevate into pages for everyone.
So what do we have going on here? I know, okay, so I'm familiar with LinkedIn company pages. What's this Elevate thing?
So it's, I mean, I haven't seen it before either, because apparently it was a part of Sales Navigator, but it's going to allow companies and Ryan, are you guys using this at IBM?
Yeah,
Elevate?
this is very timely for me. We've been using Elevate for a little over a year. So I can talk to this. This is really,
Absolutely.
I'm not sure what the move means yet, because I haven't been briefed on it, but I've certainly used Elevate, and I am the administrator of our company showcase page.
So tell us about it, Ryan, because I'm curious, how does it work right now? Because it sounds like basically they're going to go for how you guys are using it now, and now Christian and I on our company pages may be able to use this. A question right now is going to be, is it going to be something we have to pay for, or is it going to be something that's going to be free?
Yeah, well, basically what Elevate does is we call internally it's I call it our employee advocacy strategy, right? And the whole goal of it is to make it easier to curate content that we want everybody in our company to have easy access to, so that they can share it with their own social networks. And so Elevate allows you to just subscribe to a topic, subscribe to a group. Okay. Those things are curated by people like me in marketing or something, where we're deciding what content we want to feature each week. Okay. And so you could build those groups based on, job function or geography or just subject matter or what have you, or industry. So it's fairly free form how you organize it within your company. But that allows you to really, give especially your sales force, right, who their main complaint is, I don't really understand social, maybe, or I don't know how to use the content, or I don't have time. This gives them a slick, Elevate has a really nice mobile app that you literally swipe left and look at little panes, little cards, hit the share button. It has suggested text with, it could have the hashtags or people's names, mentions or what have you already baked in, or you can customize it yourself. So it's fairly painless and easy to do that. And then I think one of the cool things is they also show that employee kind of their contribution, gives that feedback of a graph of this is how many, very simple to understand, a graph of this is how many reactions you got on a given 30-day cycle. And so there's that internal leaderboard for to measure sort of in a very easy to understand way that you're making an impact. The other thing that my bosses really like in my performance report was how much earned media value our content distributed through our employees, through the Elevate platform, frankly, earned us last year, to compare that to our paid media strategy, right? Or paid media campaigns. Right. So that's in a nutshell how we used it, and how we continue to encourage our sales force to be active and really, like you said, it can be a part of this ABM strategy where it's an earned media play for ABM, right? Because what you're saying is, hey, Jim, you're in federal sales. We know you have, your Rolodex is on LinkedIn and Sales Navigator. This is a tool that helps you reach them, reach certain clients and give them this content that normally they would have to go seek out themselves.
Right. And I think, Ryan, I know, I know we haven't got to really talk that much, but when I was, reading some of your background, I know you're big on building community. And I think this, and you hit on a very key point where I think a lot of companies struggle in their social is their employees, right? Who are probably their best advocates, that they like the company they work for, should be sharing their content to their networks. And so, especially if it's their LinkedIn network, that's even better, because that's where, especially if you're a B2B business, the fact that you're able to get some high quality content and maybe add value to those either current customers or potential customers. I think this is it's exciting, and I'll be curious to see how it rolls out.
Well, the one thing that I think they need to improve on with Elevate is frankly, the tools and the features to help people like myself to do, and others like power users to do the curation aspect. So being able to that is one of the key things that needs to be done, because there's frankly the problem that it's seeking to solve is, yes, getting people to share, but in order to do that, the curation is super important, right? And so the curation feature allows people to submit stories. So that's where, if they're opening it up to pages, I think, or opening it up to the public, it'll be interesting to see how they deal with that. Because right now we have a ton of people that are really energized, that are, subscribers, and they submit stories, they submit content for curators to review and approve and share out, to the right group or the right topic or the right what have you, organize it. But frankly, that's difficult. It's difficult right now, because right now it's just a big queue, a free for all, and it's frankly a lot of effort, a lot of manual effort to do that.
So I think overall, I mean, just this also reminds me a bit of a Facebook page feature that exists where, when somebody posts some content, that it can be held for moderation. This makes me think that LinkedIn maybe might need some of this. I also like, though, the fact that this cuts down, within a company on getting people sending out mass email blast, for example, within your organization. Hey guys, go please share this. I think that's key. And then I like the fact that this also reduces the need to use Ryan. I know, for example, we'd use some other tools at some point to send out hey, here's the message we want sent, and here's the graphic we want to go with it. This encourages people to be active on the platform and to track it through LinkedIn versus trying to use some third-party tool that doesn't always work exactly how you want it. There's a lot of setup involved. So, a little more streamlining would help, I think, as well. So I think it's a move. Definitely.
Well, the fact that it's in LinkedIn is, that it's closer, and it makes it familiar, right? So when you think about if your Salesforce is already using LinkedIn Sales Navigator, some kind of CRM, literally Salesforce linked into that, they're already using those tools every day for their job. And this just adds, another convenience that frankly is going to be more familiar because it's baked in. So hopefully that works. One of my other small gripes is that Elevate does not support video yet. So as a native video, and of course LinkedIn Live has really took off last year. I mean, we saw the engagements and reactions that we saw in our LinkedIn native content was leaps and bounds better than frankly even some of our YouTube content. So I think that's an opportunity for Elevate, is if they can bring, if we can curate video content better for the everyday user, that's really going to be powerful.
And a couple of things I think are also really key here. One of those is just the curation process, as you mentioned. If you could make it easy to just get the content into the platform, I think that's extremely important. How does this work on mobile, by the way, as well? Does it work okay on mobile, or kind of relegated to desktop?
No, mobile, it has so this is an example of LinkedIn, I think for a while now has had a strategy of having separate mobile apps for separate purposes. They even had a Pulse app that was separate for a while, I think. So Elevate is its own mobile app. But in this case, I think it makes absolute sense, because what you're saying is, hey, Jim, hey, Christian, you're a busy salesperson. Open up the Elevate app every morning on your commute, or when you're sitting in the the terminal at the airport, and scroll through the latest, 5 pieces of IoT content and send one out on your feed, or send one in a private in-mail message to a specific, client that is going to care about the latest article or what have you. So the separate app in this case makes a lot of sense because it's dead simple. You scroll through, you hit share, you type a message, and you're done. And those analytics, like I said, those analytics really encourage the behavior because you're seeing a very simple way of understanding the feedback. Because usually, an everyday human doesn't know a lot about social metrics, right? And so this gives you an easy feedback mechanism to say, hey, when I shared that article last week, I got 40 reactions to it. You don't know if those are likes or comments or whatever, but you don't care. You just know that 40 people cared enough to interact with you last week, which for a salesperson, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for more connections.
Definitely. So anybody have any last thoughts on this feature before we move to one of my favorite parts of the show?
I just think it's good for pages, and they could maybe just put a little effort into groups. They're going in the right direction.
So if you don't have a company page, I guess the first thing would be to set up a company page for your business on LinkedIn. Obviously, as LinkedIn continues to build out this platform, you want to make sure you're ready to go, and you don't have to be, A, set up the company page. B, if you have your own LinkedIn profile, as you should add your business to your company page to your actual LinkedIn profile. That way people can also see what all you do besides maybe your 9-to-5 job, for example, if you have that sort of thing going on. So I think those are some good points. So now we're up to my favorite part of the show, and this is tool time, where we're going to talk about tools. And we're going to talk about 2 tools that we think can help you as a business owner or as a user. It can help you create some new content, or it can help you get things done in a much more efficient manner. We talked about, in this case, LinkedIn this week, but one of the topics that we talked also about is a tool called Vine. And for those of you who don't remember Vine is, I forgot when they got actually bought. Basically, it got bought, it got shut down. They basically are the original. So you can create 6-second videos, and so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about these tools. The first one real quick is it's called Byte. And this is actually Vine 2.0. It's a 6-second video app where you basically can create some content and share it with your network in 6-second pieces of content. So has anybody tried this out? I've already gone on. I've gotten some channel names, but have you tried this out, Jem or Ryan?
I downloaded it. I created an account. Of course, my struggle is probably the old guy in the group here is being creative in 6 seconds. I usually need more time.
Yeah, I always want to grab my my profile name. I missed out on getting my regular profile name on TikTok, and I'm kind of salty about it. So wanted to make sure I didn't lose out on Byte.
Yeah. So it is iOS and it is Android as well. So keep that in mind. And I'm going to put the links to that. But it's social stuff.
I think that's smart. I think for a while apps tended to only come out and they would minimum viable product tested on iOS first.
Yes.
And that was one of the things that held back Vine for a while. I know Vine took off, but one of the things that held back Vine was they were kind of stuck on one platform for a really long time and struggled to get onto Android.
Yeah.
So I think it's smart that's one of the smart things about Byte is to have that ability to reach, frankly, the whole smartphone market.
Definitely. And so it is iOS, it is Android. So socialchefs.com/go/BYTE-iOS or socialchefs.com/go/BYTE-Android. And this is a free app that you can download. You can create 6-second animated videos. I would say this, if you're just getting started with 6-second videos, take a look at this app, look at different categories that are there and see what people are doing. And maybe look at what other brands in your field are doing. So for example, if you're in, for example, like tech, for example, what are some tech companies that, you aspire to be, or you follow, or you really like? Look at what they're doing, see if they have a presence on there, and see if you can adapt that into your business. Because as Jem mentioned at the beginning, some businesses are boring. And so you do have to come up with something that is 6 seconds. The other key thing I really like about the 6-second aspect, and this plays to Ryan's point earlier, which is the tool. It is sort of restrictive in the fact that, like, hey, you've got 6 seconds and you've got a limited set of tools, but the fact that it also then forces you to be really good with the content you create. And don't expect the first piece of content you create to be like, wow, it's going to fly off the shelves and it's going to go viral. It takes a lot of work to make something go viral. So just spend the time playing with the app, seeing what other people are doing, and experiment. And ask your audience as well, by the way, if they are using Byte, if they are using TikTok even, and consider starting to cultivate a community on those platforms. Does anybody want to add anything to Byte, by the way, before I move to the second tool?
Well, one of the things that I was debating with Jason Keith on Twitter, when I first noticed Byte last week, was, is it a mistake, or is this the right timing? Can they enjoy the same success simply by replicating that original Vine model, or is leaving out filters and leaving out music, which is a core reason why people love TikTok? Is that a mistake, right? So is it going to? Can we replicate the Vine magic, or was that flash in a pan?
Great point. Anything you want to add, Jim? On
I think even going back to TikTok, I guess the question is, from a business perspective, what is the business case for going so much into it? I think this is good for certain businesses, but it's kind of like you got to be careful about I got to be everywhere on social. Like, I created an account, but probably more to be a lurker and see what other people are doing. But right now I'm not going to necessarily invest a lot of time in TikTok or Byte and think that all of a sudden I'm going to get all these business leads from using it.
So I'm excited about this. Again, play around with it. Claim your username at least. That's the least you need to do here. Claim your username. And you can get that by downloading the Byte app. And then there's actually some options. You can either, if you're using iOS, there's an iOS login. You can choose to share your email or not with Byte. And then there's also a Google option as well. What I would recommend, if I'm a business, claim my business under one of the accounts, and also claim my personal account as well, if you want to, on the Byte platform. And then just experiment. Look at what other people are doing, be a lurker, as Jim mentioned. And again, this is a free app, so worth testing. Keep in your back pocket, because we know how much people like to watch video. And 6 seconds, versus watching a couple-minute YouTube video, you do have to find a happy medium with the content. So that's the first tool that we have for you this week. It's called Byte. Now, the second tool we have is called Bullet. Now, Bullet is a very interesting app. It's basically, Jim and I were talking about this earlier. It's very similar to a tool called Headliner. But basically what it does is it allows you to take a podcast episode and pull out a snippet of that podcast to then be able to share. So it could be a 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, up to 30-second clip that you can easily just create right from the Byte app. Byte app from the Bullet app. Got that confused. A little tongue twister. But I'm going to go ahead and play this quick, short little video for you guys. What do you guys think about this app? Has anybody created snippets of their podcast? What do you think, Jim?
I have not yet, but it's definitely something that I'm going to look at. I mean, because it could, one of the nice things, even with StreamYard, right? You can download the audio file from your live stream and maybe play a short snippet and get people, drive people back to the video.
Definitely. What do you think, Ryan?
I think this is brilliant. I don't know. I haven't used it yet, but I think the need for it is obvious for anybody that's, I've been doing a video show in IBM called Quick Bytes for a couple of years now. And one of the, main headaches is exactly this, is how do you sort of do the surrounding production in an easy way?
Right. Because it's not just oh, great, I finished with the show, let me publish this. And you have to then chop it up even further.
Yep.
You can't just assume, okay, well, something who's going to do it? The only people that are going to do it are the people running the show. It's not going to, you don't want to leave it up to your customers or the potential customers to actually do the work. You want to be making sure you're hitting on all cylinders for this app. So,
and I think the powerful thing is that we know that podcasts are a long form content, right?
Yeah.
But not everybody is going to commit, based on the description of a show or, there's so many podcasts out there. So I think having an effective ability to give these snippets, give them, maybe in the other platforms where people are discovering podcasts or talking about these podcasts, that's it. I mean, that's really crucial.
Definitely. And the other cool thing about this app is that like it takes out like all the guesswork. So for example, if you try to do this on a laptop, for example, it's not easy to do. So I have to like, if I'm on a laptop, like I have to use my mouse, I have to like move to where like, well, what point do I want to start? What point do I want to end? The fact that this is all done on your mobile device, you literally just open like say Spotify or your favorite podcasting app, hit the share button and then select the bullet app. It then goes and it grabs your podcast that you want to share. So it doesn't have to be your own podcast. It could be someone else's. And this is the thing, like if I'm somebody who struggles with like creating content, but hey, I listen to a lot of podcasts, maybe there's a really good snippet that I can pull in and then tweet that out, for example, and then drive them back to the full episode. So lots and lots and lots of options here. And it's super easy because like I said, you're using your mobile device, you're using your fingers. So some people are a little more adept with their hands. They can easily go in, fast forward to the part that they want, and they've got those snippets ready to go in a matter of seconds. So it's also a fantastic app as well. It's a free app as well. So it's a bullet, socialchefs.com/go/bullet, BULET-IOS. So definitely check that out. So we're at the end of the show, but I want to make sure I let everybody know, like we've got quite a few things here. So like if you missed the show, you want to check out the blog post recap, some of the topics we didn't get to, socialchefs.com/SC226. That'll get you to the blog post recap with the video, the Alexa flash briefing, and much more. Ryan, what's the best place, by the way, for people to get in touch with you if they want to connect with you, they want to ask your questions and whatnot?
Well, my social handles on most platforms is the RAB, the RAB. So you can find me, start with Twitter, start with Instagram, and even on LinkedIn, I've created a short handle with that same name. So wherever you want to connect, I'm there.
Awesome. So I want to thank you, by the way, for taking a few minutes to join us this week. It's been a pleasure reconnecting with you and having you on the show this week. Jim, also a pleasure having you on as well. Thanks for filling in for Phil. If people want to get in touch with you, where do they do that at, by the way?
For me as well, it's Twitter is, at Fusion MKTG. And then also you can follow or connect with me on LinkedIn. Yes, I'm on Facebook and Instagram, but the two places I'm most active right now are definitely Twitter and LinkedIn.
And that's FUHSIONMKTG.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. So
and I followed you on Twitter, Ryan. I saw you're very active there in your profile. So maybe you should join us on Twitter Smarter today if you're free at 1:00 on our chat.
I appreciate that. Well, this has been the most exciting and informative and quite frankly fun commute of my week. So I appreciate being on the show.
Thank you so much. With that, by the way, everybody, I want to thank you for joining, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube or listening to the podcast or the Alexa Flash briefing. With that, we're going to be back next Thursday. That's February 6th, actually. We're going to have Jamie Cohen on. You may have seen her on a previous episode, but she's going to be joining us. And we're working on the time still, but it'll be on Facebook or YouTube at /socialchefs. So facebook.com/socialchefs or youtube.com/socialchefs. With that, I'm going to wrap things up. But thanks a lot for joining, everyone. And we will see you all next week. Bye, guys.
See you soon.